My name's Brodie Lancaster. I wrote a memoir last year that's called No Way, Okay Fine, and it has a very sad chapter about living in New York, and I hope that this is less sad. Strangely, only a little bit less poo in my story than in Beverly's. And it's at the top, so we'll get over it fast. It's been 6 years since I moved back to Melbourne after living in New York, but there are still a few horrifying images of the city that I haven't been able to cleanse from my mind. The first, I told you it was early, the first is of a Starbucks cup upturned on the sidewalk, filled to the brim with what I'm 60% sure was dog shit, but I very deliberately left that other 40% free because it just as well could have come from a human. And as I was writing this, I realised people don't put dog poo in Starbucks cups, so I kind of solved the mystery myself. But whoever or whatever produced it, there was too much of it for even a venti-sized cup to contain, and so it was upturned and spilling out of the sides. That's it for the poo stuff, and we're moving on. Unless, the next speaker has some as well. The second image is of a woman in her early 20s paying me back for a $5 ticket to a comedy show by pulling out a checkbook and handing me a piece of cardboard that somehow was still treated like money in 2011, which is all the proof you need that New York and America is broken. And the third image that I can't scrub from my mind is one of a very sweaty, sad, disheveled woman outside a Fashion Week event at Lincoln Center holding broken Urban Outfitters sandals in one hand and 2 street hot dogs in the other that I soon realized was just my own reflection staring back at me from a very smudged Starbucks window. I moved to New York in 2011, 6 months after graduating from RMIT. I was 21 years old, and like any 21-year-old at any point in human history, I was filled with such extreme blind confidence that I literally thought I would never move back to Australia. I distributed all my furniture amongst my friends. I said very long, sad goodbyes, and then I was back within a year. There are a lot of things that we expect and assume about a place that's as pervasive in popular culture as New York City is, long before we ever arrive. When I moved into my sublet in Williamsburg that summer, it was with an image of myself somewhere between Meryl Streep carrying an armful of lilies over cobblestone streets in the opening scene of The Hours, before it got very sad, and squeezing between sweaty bodies in CBGB, the punk club that was made famous by artists like the Ramones and Patti Smith and Blondie half a century earlier. I could never see that image of myself through to fruition though, because my salary didn't leave much room for fresh cut flowers, and the space on the Lower East Side that used to house CBGBs was now a store that sold high-end menswear to what I can only assume are very fashion-forward pirates. Google John Varvatos, it's pirate clothes. The concept of the city that TV and movies and Billy Joel and Tina Fey have implanted in our collective minds is pretty much non-existent now. A few years ago, a friend compared moving to New York City with the hopes of being to beleaguer a point, Carrie Bradshaw, sitting at her laptop, and I couldn't help but wondering after a long brunch, to somebody, as she described it, chasing the party. The sensation, she said, was like having an incredible and unexpected night out with your friends, and then the next time you see them, having the memory of that spontaneous night hovering like something you can't quite match up to again. The same, this friend said, was true of everyone who read Just Kids and imagined what their life would be like if they were like Patti Smith, living among the artists at the Chelsea Hotel, which closed its doors a month after I moved to the city and has been in the hands of wealthy boutique hotel developers ever since. There's no use chasing the party anymore because the party's been priced out and painted over and turned into a froyo shop. But I don't want to be really grim and bum you all out by telling you that we were sold a lie, and in reality that living in New York is mostly like the scene in Girls where Hannah sticks a cotton bud too far in her ear, mixed with the episode of Broad City where Abby has to pick up a parcel and she has to travel to a separate island to get it, all tied up in a bow that is the looming credit card debt that hangs over the Greta Gerwig movie Frances Ha. Instead, I want to focus on one group of people who, despite all odds, are making the city work for them, and in doing so, make me want to ignore my better judgment and book a one-way flight to the Hamptons on a credit card I can't pay off. I'm not talking about the kids from Gossip Girl who sat on the steps of the Met every morning like mean statues. I'm talking about the Real Housewives of New York City. There's Bethany, Ramona, Princess Carol, Aviva, who threw her prosthetic leg when she got mad in season 6, Jill Zarin, Countess Luann, Sad Tinsley, and Drunk Dorinda. After watching every single episode of their show in the space of 3 weeks last month, and also it's the 2nd of July, last month was not very long ago, these women are now what New York City is to me now. And no offense to some of my closest friends who live there, but the next time I visit, it will be for only one thing, and that is to eat at Cipriani's and party at the Regency, which is where Tom cheated on Luann, RIP to that marriage. The Real Housewives of New York is a show about very sad middle-aged people who at any time are either betraying or being betrayed by someone, and occasionally both at once. They're mostly very broken women making terrible financial and emotional decisions, the biggest one arguably being still living in New York City, and then just getting together over dinner and bottomless wine to empathize with and scream at one another. They're all special and amazing in their own way, but if there's one housewife who deserves to be cast in bronze, painted green, and replace the Statue of Liberty when, not if, the French inevitably demand her back, it's Sonia Tremont Adams Morgan. Segue, I know that any fellow diehard Real Housewives fans will know that it's kind of sacrilegious to suggest that anyone but Countess Luann should assume the role of Statue of Liberty, considering that Luann got her title from her ex-husband, Count Alex, who is descended from Ferdinand de Lesseps, the diplomat who built the Suez Canal and gifted the Statue of Liberty to America from the French. And I know that what the rest of you are wondering too is the woman who sang the auto-tuned songs Money Can't Buy You Class, Chic C'est La Vie, and Girl Code, the woman who secretly hooked up with a pirate in St. Bart's in season 5, the woman who was just arrested in Palm Springs last Christmas and charged with 4 felonies, including threatening to kill her arresting officers. Is that woman really Franco-American royalty? The answer is yes. But back to Sonia. Sweet, broken, hopeful, disaster-ridden Sonia Tremont Adams Morgan, whose monogrammed towels say "Stam" and honestly look a bit aggressive draped over her clawfoot tub. Sonia was friends with Donald Trump, but we don't hold that against her because Sonia has the naivete of any 54-year-old woman who believes anyone who appears out of nowhere and promises her the world despite having been burnt and proved wrong what seems like monthly by this point. Says Emma Lazarus's poem inscribed on the base of the Statue of Liberty, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." And sure, this reframed the once unpopular statue's presence as a beacon of hope for new arrivals to the country. But doesn't it also describe the way Sonia welcomes with open arms Tinsley, the fallen star of the social scene, and Countess Luann, who is house hunting but calls herself homeless, into the 4th floor of her dilapidated townhouse located on the Upper East Side next to a 24-hour parking garage? Isn't Sonia, whose fashion show flopped and who was accused of plagiarising other wine brands with her own, if anyone knows what the term cheetah brand means in relation to Bethany Frankel, you get it, and who just wants to get her line of toaster ovens and matching spatulas off the ground, isn't she kind of a modern-day mother of exiles? When Lazarus wrote, "Send these, the homeless, to me, I lift my lamp beside the golden door," who's to say she wasn't describing the way Sonia has dozens of interns, including one woman called Pickles, living in her house at any one time and somehow earning college credit for it? I feel like this is the time that I should disclose that I never actually read the base of the Statue of Liberty because you can see, this is a hot tourist tip, you can see it from the Statue of Liberty, which from the Staten Island Ferry, which is free. So I just rode that back and forth past Liberty Island instead of paying for a tour. Sonia Morgan is New York City. She instills in us none of the false hope of the city's television heroines who have come before, and she's hustling every moment of her life to keep her Botoxed head above water. Her life in the city is one that I wish I'd known about before I lived there, because if I knew that a woman like her existed at all, let alone inside that house with an elevator that no one is allowed to use when she's not home because they will get trapped in it, I would have looked at my own life and known it might have actually turned out fine. Because, to paraphrase Sinatra or Alicia Keys, who we heard earlier, if she can make it there, God knows the rest of us should be able to too. Thank you.
Visit wheelercentre.com for the best in books, writing and ideas from Melbourne, Australia and the world.